the heir with the double portion of spirit. Elisha was Elijah's disciple and attendant for a long time. The transfer of the prophetic office was marked by the event of Elijah being taken up to heaven in a whirlwind and chariot of fire. When Elijah ascended, his cloak, a symbol of prophetic power, fell and was picked up by Elisha. Before Elijah was taken away, Elisha had asked, "Please let a double portion of your spirit be upon me." This was not a personal demand for power, but a request for a larger share, the right of the firstborn, in the prophetic ministry to continue God's work among a stubborn nation of Israel. After picking up the cloak and striking the Jordan River, which parted, the company of prophets at Jericho recognized and said, "The spirit of Elijah rests on Elisha." Elisha was set apart to continue the prophetic ministry in the kingdom of Israel, the northern kingdom, which was deeply immersed in the worship of the idol Baal and the golden calves, established by King Jeroboam. Just before the incident of the 42 children, Elisha had performed 2 great miracles at Jericho. Healing the water source. He made the bitter water source in Jericho sweet and clean by throwing salt into the water. Parting the Jordan River. He caused the Jordan River to part in 2 to cross, just as Elijah had done. Elisha was on his way to major prophetic centers and cities to visit and teach. Jericho and Bethel were both important places. Bethel means, house of God. This was where Jacob set up an altar and called the place Bethel after dreaming of a ladder reaching to heaven. Bethel was a sacred place and a traditional religious center. After the kingdom of Israel split, King Jeroboam I established Bethel, along with Dan, as a center of worship in the north. He set up a golden calf at Bethel and declared, "Here are your gods, Israel, who brought you up out of Egypt." This action turned Bethel from the house of God into a center of idol worship, leading Israel into sin. When Elisha arrived in Bethel, he was entering a city full of apostasy and idolatry. The fact that the children's group in Bethel mocked him, especially after the miracles proving God's power that he had just performed at Jericho, shows the lack of reverence for God and the negative influence of idol worship on the younger generation in this place. The act of disrespect in Bethel. As the prophet Elisha was walking on the road leading from Jericho up to Bethel, he encountered a group of young people. They originated from Bethel, a city known for its apostasy and golden calf worship, which indicated that moral and religious decadence had affected the city's younger generation. The mocking of this group was not merely a harmless joke but carried a deep implication of disrespect, targeting both Elisha personally and his divine office. Bald head. This was a direct insult, aimed at Elisha's appearance. In ancient culture, especially in a religious context, baldness could be considered a shame or ridiculed, particularly when compared to prophets or priests who often had long hair, a symbol of consecration. Insulting the prophet's appearance was an act of disrespect. Challenging authority. This was the most crucial part of the mockery. Elisha had just witnessed his master, Elijah, being taken up to heaven in a chariot of fire and a whirlwind. This group might have heard about Elijah's ascension and were mocking Elisha's authority as his successor. They implied, "If you are truly Elijah's successor and possess God's power, then prove it by being taken up to heaven too, like your master." This mockery was a public denial of the office and power of God placed upon Elisha. It showed that they did not believe in his mission and took lightly the power of Yahweh, God. This mockery was a serious sin because it demonstrated ingratitude, lack of reverence for God. Immediately after Elisha had performed 2 great miracles, parting the Jordan River and healing the Jericho water source, this group publicly mocked God's representative. Disrespect for the Anointed One. In the Bible, those anointed by God, prophets, kings, must be respected. Mocking Elisha was not just insulting an individual but also insulting God himself, who had sent and empowered him. the swift and severe punishment. Faced with the act of personal insult and challenge to divine authority, Elisha had a serious reaction. Elisha turned and looked at the group of mockers. This action was his interruption of the journey and a clear recognition of their sin. Elisha did not use his own personal curse. He cursed them in the name of the Lord, specifically Yahweh. This was not an outburst of personal anger for being called bald head. It was the action of a servant of God, enacting judgment against a more serious sin, disrespect and contempt for the power of God as represented by his servant. This curse was a strong warning, aimed at establishing Elisha's authority as the prophet of Yahweh amidst a nation immersed in the sin of idol worship, Bethel being the center of the golden calf worship. Direct intervention of God. Immediately after the curse was pronounced, the judgment occurred instantly and miraculously, emphasizing that the punitive action came from God, whom Elisha represented. Sudden appearance. Then 2 female bears came out of the woods. The appearance of the 2 female bears, which the Bible specifies as female bears, possibly more aggressive when protecting cubs, at that exact moment, right after the curse, is considered a supernatural intervention of God, a miracle of judgment. This event occurred near Bethel, a mountainous and wooded area where bears could live. This also serves as a reminder that God can use natural elements to execute his will. Tragic consequence. The 2 bears rushed in and mauled the group of mockers. A total of 42 children, or young people, were killed. This consequence affirms that the prophet's words were confirmed by God, and his authority is absolute. The story is recorded to emphasize the seriousness of the sin of disrespect towards God and his anointed servants. In the context of apostate Israel, this was a terrible deterrent lesson, intended to call the people back to the fear and obedience of Yahweh. After this event, Elisha continued his journey to Mount Carmel and then returned to Samaria. The story emphasizes that disrespect for those whom God has anointed or called to serve him is a serious sin. The mocking of Elisha by the children of Bethel, especially after the miracle Elisha had just performed at Jericho, healing the bitter water, is seen as a challenge and contempt for the authority of God whom he represented. This severe punishment is seen as an act to protect the honor and authority of God, as well as to establish Elisha's position as a true prophet in the eyes of the people of Israel who were living in apostasy. The event also shows the moral and religious corruption in Bethel, a place steeped in idol worship, which led to a lack of fear of God and respect for the prophets even among the children. If you liked this video, don't forget to like, comment, and most importantly, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss new content.